Ever, like, totally misread someone, get that first impression, and think, okay, they're this kind of person, and then bam, they go and surprise you with, like, depths you never even considered.
Oh, totally. We've all been there.
Makes you realize how much is going on beneath the surface, right? Like, what goes into how people see the world so differently.
It's fascinating, right?
So today, we're diving into this whole idea of developmental stages. Think of it kind of like a map, yeah? Helps us understand how folks think and make sense of things at different points in their lives.
And just to be clear, we're not talking about putting people in boxes with this, right?
Exactly. This isn't about labeling, it's about layers, getting a new perspective. And the excerpt we're looking at today gets into all of that. The strengths, the limitations of these stages. And here's the kicker, how it all connects to the Mormon faith, especially for those, well, navigating faith crises. Heavy stuff.
It is. And honestly, so relevant for so many people right now.
Surreal.
Yeah.
Okay, so the source jumps right in with this analogy. Developmental stages as a map. Useful, absolutely. But it's not the whole picture, is it?
Right. Like a map can get you from point A to point B, but it can't tell you what it's actually like to be in those places.
Right.
What it feels like.
The vibes.
Exactly. And what's so cool about that analogy is it highlights how fluid this whole development thing is. It's not like we hit a certain stage and boom, that's it, we're done evolving.
Right, it's not a straight line.
More like we're each working with a whole set of maps. Some are more helpful than others, depending on where we are in life at that moment, what we're going through.
Which actually, the source mentions how our stage can even shift within a single day.
Yeah.
Stress, who we're with, what we're dealing with, it all plays in.
Well, for sure. You could be feeling super confident, on top of your game at work, maybe what you consider a higher stage, right?
Right.
But then you get home, have an argument with your partner, and suddenly you're seeing things from a totally different perspective, maybe what you consider a lower stage. But neither is the real you, And it's all part of the journey.
So it's less about labeling ourselves or others and more about
recognizing that we all have this incredible capacity for growth and change.
Yeah.
We can paint multitudes, as they say.
Okay, but here's where things get really interesting. The source says most people are actually operating within a range of 3 to 5 stages at any given time. What do you think about that?
It made so much sense, though, when you think about it. We've
Yeah.
all got these different sides to us, right? Like, I might be super organized at work, but then my kitchen cupboard's total chaos.
No judgment here, mine too.
But the important thing, and the source stresses this, is that we don't use these stages to judge each other. That whole more developed, less developed thing.
It's so easy to do, though. We love to rank stuff.
We do. But the source is clear. Higher stages aren't inherently better. Each one has strengths, weaknesses, a unique way of seeing things.
Not a hierarchy then, more like a kaleidoscope. Different but equally valid. So we've got these developmental stages, this idea that growth is kind of messy, not a straight shot to some finish line. But how does this actually work in a community, like specifically the Mormon faith?
Right. How do you square this whole individual journey thing with, well, organized religion?
Exactly. And our source really dives into that.
Yeah, and one of the first things that jumped out at me was how the source emphasizes that there isn't one right way to be Mormon, just like there's no one right developmental stage.
Makes sense. You've got folks from all walks of life in any religion, right? With their own experiences, their own ways of connecting.
Totally. And our source even suggests that the way we connect with our faith, how we understand it, even the questions we wrestle with, it often reflects where we're at developmentally in that moment.
So someone at an earlier stage might find comfort in the structure of the faith, the certainty, while someone at a later stage might be asking, like, bigger, tougher questions.
It's a possibility, yeah. The source even goes so far as to say those tougher questions, those doubts,
Yeah.
they could be signs of growth, of moving towards a more nuanced faith.
Wow. Okay, so that actually brings up something else I wanted to ask you about, this whole Zion thing, right? That vision of harmony, community, everyone on the same page.
Which, with developmental stages, feels kind of tricky.
Right. So how does that fit in? If everyone's on their own path, how do we create that kind of unity?
Well, see, that's where it gets really interesting. Because the source seems to be saying true Zion. It's not about everyone being at the same stage thinking the same way. It's about creating space for all of it. Developmental diversity, they call it.
So less about uniformity, more about
Honoring the individual journeys. Meeting people where they are. And that includes people going through faith transitions, people wrestling with doubt.
which, let's be honest, can be so difficult. For the person going through it and for the community around them, there's this pressure to just have it all figured out.
And our source kind of flips that on its head.
Yeah.
Like, maybe that's not the point at all. Maybe the point is to create a space where it's okay to not have it all figured out.
To say, hey, your questions are welcome here. Your doubts, they're not a threat.
Exactly. Because, think about it, those struggles, those questions, they can lead to such a deeper, more authentic faith,
Yeah.
right? For everyone involved.
Right. It challenges the status quo, pushes everyone to go deeper.
And honestly, isn't that more interesting, more real than just blind acceptance?
Totally. So going back to that map analogy, it's not about everyone on the same path. It's more like creating a space where all these different paths can coexist.
Intersect even, learn from each other. That's where the good stuff happens,
Mm-hmm.
when we're willing to really listen to those different perspectives.
Instead of trying to fix someone who's struggling, maybe we ask, what can I learn from your experience?
Yes, because their journey, their questions might eliminate something totally new for you, deepen your understanding.
It's like we all have a piece of the puzzle. Even those who feel lost in the moment, their experience still matters.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Growth individually and as a community. It thrives in that environment. Openness, acceptance, and a willingness to get a little messy. That's where the magic happens.
Okay, so we're talking developmental stages, different ways of seeing the world, and how this all plays out in a specific faith community. It's not about finding the right answer. It's about creating that space where everyone feels seen, heard, regardless of where they're at on their own journey.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that takes a willingness to really engage with those different perspectives,
Hmm.
especially the ones that challenge us, make us uncomfortable.
Because within that discomfort, there's a whole lot of potential for growth. We're all works in progress, right?
Mhm.
Our understanding of faith evolves alongside us. But you know what? There's another layer to this whole stages thing I want to dig into. It's like that saying, there are as many churches as there are members. But this source takes it even further. Like, it's not just about different interpretations, right?
Deeper, you're saying?
Way deeper. It's like each of us, based on our own stage, we're practically living our own version of faith, bringing our whole selves to it. The good, the messy, all of it.
Yeah, no more hiding those parts. Which, that's both beautiful and kind of terrifying, isn't it?
Right. Like, no easy answers anymore, no one size fits all. It's going to look different for everyone, and that's what's a lot.
It is. But isn't that kind of the point the source is making about Zion? If we want a harmonious community, it can't be about everyone falling in line. It's got to be about,
We're celebrating the differences.
yes, all the developmental stages, all those different ways of seeing things. It's like an orchestra, right?
Yeah, I love that.
You need all those instruments, all those unique voices to make something truly amazing.
Right. So it's about making space for all of them.
Yeah.
Not just tolerating, but actually valuing those different instruments, those different stages.
And listening to each other, especially when someone's playing a different tune. Maybe one that makes us a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because that discomfort, that's where we grow.
Ooh, good point. Instead of trying to quiet those dissonant notes, we lean in. We say, okay, what are you teaching us? How are you adding to this whole symphony of faith?
Exactly. Sometimes it's those unexpected notes, the ones that make you go, what's
What?
that? Those are the ones that make the music really come alive.
Wow. So much to think about. We've covered a lot of ground here, haven't we? Developmental stages, how they shape us, how they play out in a faith community.
We talked about how there's no one right way, no finish line to this whole development thing. It's about recognizing those different strengths, those different perspectives, and approaching them with, radical compassion.
For ourselves and for everyone else. Because, let's be real, navigating faith, especially in times of change and uncertainty, it's a journey.
It is. And this source reminds us that doubt, questioning, those aren't the enemy. They can actually be like signposts on the road to a deeper, more authentic faith.
So good. Well, on that note, I think we're going to wrap up this deep dive, but hopefully this conversation leaves you with some new things to ponder, maybe a little more understanding, a little more grace for yourself and for those around you as we all,
Yeah.
figure this whole life and faith thing out together.
Beautifully said. Until next time.